Representative Munson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I know this is a very emotional bill. This bill intends on raising a lot of money, on charging money into this health, and really raising the cost of health care, and there's going to be a lot of good done with the money that this bill raises. I do not doubt that. There's been motions made to pay for this out of the general fund so that we can use money where it's needed to fight addiction and to fight crime, because a lot of the opiates that are killing people in Minnesota are not pharmaceuticals, but they are, imported illegal drugs. This bill, I did not support the House version of this bill because of what happened in the state of New York, and where this bill would disproportionately impact generic pharmaceutical companies, which really are the ones that are taking care of people that are in chronic pain and people that are at the end of their lives dealing with enormous amounts of pains, and those who rely on opiates the most for good, for medical purpose. This bill, the bill that we passed off the House floor, would assess $20 million to the opioid industry directly in proportion to the amount of drugs that they sold in Minnesota. And as much as I didn't like that bill, that was a fair way of distributing the cost. But this bill, as amended in the conference committee report, charges flat fees to everyone in Minnesota who touches opiates. Whether you're a manufacturer, you're a wholesaler, distributor. Members, this bill taxes veterinarians $5,000 a year because they can prescribe, or they may prescribe, opiates. Veterinarians. This taxes medical gas distributors. And as far as I know, there are no medical gases that have opiates in them. But there's some small companies out there too. You may tax the largest medical gas distributor, but you're also taxing the small medical gas distributor. And the company who is distributing welding gas, but maybe wants to carry a couple of tanks for oxygen because there's a nursing home in that small town, in that small community, where they don't want to drive 40 miles to get oxygen for a few patients in their nursing home. They want to just have a local distributor handle it. Now he's going to have to pay $5,000 a year under this bill because he wants to help out a local nursing home, or she. This bill taxes small businesses as well as big businesses. Now, I've stood on this floor and railed against crony capitalism. I'm a capitalist, I love capitalism, and I love it that it drives innovation. But sometimes the big companies come to you and twist your arms to get legislation like this that boxes them in and boxes their competition out. You're going to be assessing fines $250,000 a year or $55,000 a year to distributors large and small, regardless of the number of opiates that they distribute lawfully in this state. Members, what's going to happen when you do this is the generic manufacturers aren't going to see a need to distribute generic drugs here. And the name brand drugs that are 1,200% the cost of generics may be the only ones available. And the large manufacturers are going to win on this. The large wholesalers are going to win on this. And the small guys are going to say, we're not going to do business in Minnesota. You are driving business to big pharma, to the top, to the largest manufacturers, the largest wholesalers, the largest distributors. You've allowed them to give you the bill that they wanted. And what happens when the power rests in the hands of just a few companies? Think the prices are going to go down? No. You are raising the cost of drugs by directly taxing the opioid industry $20 million a year, over $20 million a year, and you're doing this for at least $250 million. That's not going to help people that are at the end of their lives, struggling to pay medical costs, struggling to keep their pain under control. We have a need to fight crime and addiction in this state, but taxing the sickest among us is not a moral thing to do. I like the fact that there's a sunset in here, because it's awfully tough to take this away when there's going to be so many great programs that are set up to feed off of this money. And the sunset will kick in when we get $250 million in settlement money, or if the settlement never comes, after we've taxed our sick for many, many, many years. This may finally go away. Again, this bill disproportionately taxes small distributors. You're giving the small people, the small distributors, the small companies, and the companies selling the least expensive drugs, the ones that my friend here, Representative Howard, would be proud of, that try to make the least amount of profit on their drugs. You are taxing them indiscriminately. Actually, you're taxing them more because they're not making as much. You're giving the guys, the largest companies out there, a win here today. I'm voting no, and I'd urge that we go back and change this so that it's more fair to the small manufacturers and wholesalers and to the generic companies. If you're going to tax these guys, tax them in proportion to the damage they're doing to our state. Don't drive business to just the top few companies. This is a big corporate bailout. This is crony capitalism in its finest, and I won't have any part of this. I'm voting no.